Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Kaiju Connections, my segment on the channel dedicated to all things kaiju and giant monster cinema and television. And today we're here to talk about the second, I guess, most famous, in my opinion, uh, Korean kaiju film. And of course, that film is the one and only Pulgasari. And to talk about this particular film, Pulgasari, we have two great guests. We have Mr. Jedi Granville from Jedi Granville Productions. And at the bottom there, we have the Kaiju Enigma Jake Hall. How
Yes,
you doing, gentlemen?
going quite well, sir. Thank you very much for having us.
Doing good.
Yes. And we are joined tonight by Mr. Anthony Jordan of Anthony Jordan Movies and Gaming. And if you don't know, me and Anthony, I was a guest on his channel yesterday, and we did a review and a discussion on Peter Jackson's King Kong. So please check out Anthony Jordan's Movies and Gaming and check out that particular stream on Peter Jackson's King Kong. It was a lot of fun. And also joining us, we have Ulven.
Hmm.
Thanks for joining us.
What's up, brother?
Yes. And apparently you're Jake the Red.
I think he knows. I think he knows. He knows.
But
We'll
anyway, let's get cracking, as I like to say.
see.
So, Mr. Jedi Granville, when's the first time you were introduced to Pulgasari?
Oh God, this is kind of weird because I knew about Pulgasari for a while. It's been a good, say, decade now. So I should say a little bit more. And I was introduced to it because, like I say, the kind of, that's the kind of thing. Once the craze of kaiju started rebuilding itself, when the 24, when the 2014 Godzilla came on the rise, it ignited it opened up the floodgates of all these long lost kaiju films that most people probably knew about, but never really got a chance to see or heard of. So I just happened to see this pop up on my feed sometimes, and I'm just kind of like, okay, here this is. And I wouldn't see this film until years later. And it was like, it's roughly about 5 years ago that I actually watched it. And I was kind of like taken aback by it because, I mean, this is an interesting type of kaiju film that's from a different country that's not related to. What's up?
Sister Sarah, nice to see you.
What's up? And but bottom line, and it's another one of those kaiju films that's got an interesting take on the whole, kaiju drama, from Japan and sometimes other places, where they do monster films, and and it came out, like I say, came out in '85, came out 40 years ago, and surprisingly, it started to build up steam again from its infamous reasonings behind how it got to be what it is now. So.
Yes. Jake Hall, can you remember your first time seeing this particular film?
Well, I want to say it was probably mid '90s when I first discovered Pulpazari. Uh, I saw like photos and all of that, and I was like, "Oh, let me see if I can try to find like a video of it or not," and couldn't find any of it. It wasn't until one day on YouTube I was like, "Oh, you know what? Let me type it in and see what I could find on it." And they actually had the full movie, and it wasn't until a few weeks ago when I finally watched it completely through. And needless to say, it was very interesting film for its time. At that time, because it's 1985, we're getting into the Heisei era of Godzilla and all that, and for that time period and for the acting for that time period, very intriguing to say the least.
Mhm.
That's true.
Yeah, my first time seeing this is just like Jedi mentioned. There was a lot of interest in kaiju films after Godzilla 2014 was released. It basically created this new interest in the kaiju genre, and because of that, older films were then starting to get noticed. And I had obviously heard of the likes of Yongari and the likes of Pulgasari, but never ever got to see them. And then I think it might have been the Internet Archive. I did get to see these films, but they weren't good quality.
That's the thing.
But I have recently, because it's now available on YouTube for free, I had the opportunity to watch it, and seeing it fully in a better light actually grew to like this film more. But we'll also have Snorks and Sass in the house.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh, sir. Or ma'am, whoever you
Yeah.
are.
Now, Anthony has brought up a good point, which we will get into, but we need to talk about the film first. But he has mentioned this, and I totally agree. They really need to make a movie about the story
Yeah,
of this movie.
I
And
think that.
it's not just about the story of this movie or the making of this movie. It's about the complete story of the director himself, who had quite a horrendous time to see it. The whole event to around this film is quite shocking. But let's get into the film, and then we'll talk about that at the end. So,
All right.
Pulgasari is an epic monster film directed and produced by Shin Sang-ok in 1985 during his North Korean abduction. That's right. This particular director was abducted by the leader of Korea at that time, and was forced into creating movies for was this South Korea or North Korea? I cannot remember. Or North Korea.
I think that was the thing. Yes.
Because the film industry wasn't doing very well. And so basically what happened is the leader of North Korea decided to kidnap a well-established film director and basically forced him in captivity to try and boost the film industry by forcing him to make movies. In the first movie that he was put into production that he was forced to write was Pulgasari. So that is the weirdness behind this particular film, which the film turned out to be an interesting film, but the backstory behind how this film was brought to light and came about is far greater than I think the film itself. And just like Anthony Jordan has stated, I very much think we need a biopic about his experience.
But isn't it interesting? You bring up this that he's put into jail for doing this. It's funny that it's not about us. It's almost like a slave trade, but it's not for some sexual innuendo. It's not about something like for money or anything like that. It's about you have to make films for us, and this is what's the price of doing it. Your freedom. I'm just like, that's a very interesting take. I mean, you think you can write this stuff, you cannot make this stuff up. And I feel like if someone was to ever, okay, was it North? Yeah.
Yeah.
If they were ever to make a documentary or at least do a biopic of the story in film, and I would
Tony.
see that. Yeah, what's up, Tony? I would love to see them do that because it's funny how the stories behind some great films or lost films are more, ambitious or more, like out there to be told. And I think like this one definitely would need to be told what behind the scenes because what I read and what I heard, I was like, It's like, okay, you're forcing me to do something. It's like it feels like, well, it's at least you let me get my freedom if I do these films. It's like, okay, that's fine, but still. All right, what's up? Yeah.
What's going on, Jedi? Or Tony?
I was just
So
saying,
I was gonna say, I'm gonna say Jedi is on the screen, but also it says a co-production between North Korea, Japan, and China. It is supposedly a remake of Pulgasari, a 1962 South Korean film that also depicts Pulgasari, a creature from North Korean folklore. The assembly cast. I'm not even going to attempt to say the names because I'd probably butcher them. But the film is set during the Goryeo dynasty. Pulgasari follows a blacksmith's daughter who brings to life a metal-eating monster her late father created to defeat the monarchy.
Yes.
So this particular film starts off, and it's quite a depressing beginning of this film. So basically, you have this monarchy who rule this kingdom, and there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of peasants, there's a lot of people starving, and the monarchy basically holds this village and all of the kingdom with an iron fist and forces them in to do the farm work and all that, and the laws are very, very horrible and tight, and you have this blacksmith who makes tools for the farmers, also makes weapons for the military, for the monarchy, and at the same time you have his daughter, and his daughter basically she helps on the farm or helps around on the blacksmith shop, and she's engaged or is betrothed to this gentleman who calls the blacksmith his uncle. I think out of respect. And there's a lot of them. Because they are basically planning a rebellion against the monarchy. They are like the rebels against the monarchy who the blacksmith, I guess, has secretly been helping. And suddenly, as the plot progresses, there's a mini battle between the monarchy and the blacksmith's daughter's partner. He gets captured, and then suddenly the blacksmith is then taken into custody because they realize he's been providing weapons for the people who are rebelling against the monarchy. And when this happens, he's put into a cage and he slowly starts starving to death. His wife and his daughter are begging to be able to go and feed him, and just the cruel people that work for the monarchy are just, they want nothing to do with them. They're not willing to help them. This leads to the blacksmith when they throw food up at the bars of his cell that he's in, and it's like these little rice balls. So what he ends up doing is he gets the rice balls and he turns them into like this little figurine of a monster creature. And you then find, previously you found out that when she was grown up, the blacksmith would tell a story about Pulgasari, this creature, who would protect them against, threats and so forth. So he then, I guess, in his last dying breaths, begs Pulgasari to save him and his people. He passes away, and, as his body gets brought out of the cage, he's got this little figurine which his daughter takes, and things get very interesting from that point on. But I'll start with Jedi. The whole start of this movie, and like how it's quite depressing, and this this power hungry monarchy who are controlling these villages and torturing basically and starving the people. What was your whole like feelings on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because the whole take of it, it's interesting because see, I can actually see various films or film stories embedded in this particular film. Especially at the beginning. Like when you see the beginning, it's a peaceful village. They're living their daily lives. Peacefully, calmly. No BS from anything that. But although behind the scenes, there's somebody that's being a tyrant against him. I
Mm-hmm.
always get this feel of like because we talked about it before. Like the story similar to the Seven Samurai, a little bit in there. Some
Yeah.
some of it you can say Damagen is embedded in here. That 60s that big statue that's in the 60s Showa era. I can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see that a little bit in there. And I also can say, as you was talking, I was saying this almost reminds me a little bit of crazy it sounds, a little bit of Star Wars embedded in it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that story is kind of leeching off, I'm saying leeching off, I should say borrowing from Eastern philosophy and everything. So I see a lot of those kind of stories embedded where the oppressed are just, as they say, they're oppressed, they're starving, for freedom, or starving for being, not being tyrrated over by this leader who just seems like, he just gets his rocks off by, keeping the people on a iron, like you say, on a iron foot, so to speak. And when you see that they come to the point where they just had enough, it's like something arises that gives them hope, and it's like it's time to fight back against this oppression. And I mean, it's really, it's just a reflection of just in general human nature, because we've seen that time and time again through the ages, where you have this so-called person who's ruling over the people, but they're not ruling over them to, make their lives better. They're ruling over them to make their life, I mean, that particular person's life, saying, hey, I'm the one on top, you bow down to me, and that's, your life will be okay. That is something we've seen time and time again in human history. And this is just an example of a film that, is notorious for the backstory, how it be made. But the story is bringing out that we see that people are not going to take it anymore. We're fight eventually. And kind of like that Twisted Sister song, like, we're not going to take it. No, we're not gonna take. It's like, I know it's kind of being silly, but it really is like that. It's like we're getting tired of this, and you can only do that so much to some people to a degree. And it's like, okay, I'm not backing down no more. So eventually they rise up against this person, and true enough, they, when they fight, they're gonna lose. They're gonna lose some numbers and everything, but they have the will to say, we're gonna do something now to get our freedom and not be, like on this vice forever, because we want our freedom, we want our peace, we want our state of mind, and not be held by you and thinking that you are, all you survey, you're not a ruler of survey. You're not going to be doing that to us anymore.
Mm. Jake, what's your like thoughts on this, on the beginning of this film?
Well, when I first what's going on, Ricky? When I first watched it the first time and I saw the beginning, I was like, wow, these people are working hard. They're in a poor environment, but they're trying to make mincemeat out of it. And then you have this governor type person who's coming up, like, you're the blacksmith, right? You're the blacksmith, right? You make all sorts of goodies. Well, I got some goodies here for you. And you see them bring an ox with all like farmer tools and stuff. When later on you see that the emperor, king, or whoever the hell it is sitting here stealing equipment from the people of their village and all that. And
It's the time of the year, Tony. It's the time of the year.
Yes, very much.
So, and they're in here, and they're trying to steal more and more, and then you mentioned the daughter's fiance, or soon to be fiance, is trying to lead a rebellion, and they're trying to stop them from. And one of them gets slashed, and then they get captured, and then they capture the blacksmith, and then you see him tied up over a plank, and the emperor dude sitting here saying, "Beat him, beat him, beat him, beat him," and all that. And I'm just sitting here thinking, God, dog. And then he's then tells him, put him in the cage, and he's not to eat anything at all. And then the other guys that were part of the rebellion are like, we're not going to eat until he eats. And I'm like, wow. I mean, either that's dedication or y'all are stupid, one of the two. But and then the daughter and the brother, little kid, come up, and they're like trying to see the father and all that, and pleading them, let's get us. And the other guy's like, no, 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 I can't. I could be killed for this. I can't do it. Ugh. So after that, they hear their father's like, I will be all right. Just go back home. Oh, father, father, father. And then the little brother sitting here. I know, I'm so dramatic, folks.
I was going to say, the Academy Award goes to.
But it's like sitting here throwing the rice or whatever it is. And then he's like, oh, let me do. And you see him just kind of doing this. And he forms the creature out of that. And then he makes a wish to a star. And as soon as he dies, you see the figure glow a kind of sky bluish, almost like Godzilla's breath color. Yeah. And then he has passed. And like you said, the daughter grabs the figure, takes it back to the home. Kid still crying like, I couldn't tell if he was really crying or just faking it, which obviously he was. But then she starts sewing his, I guess, shirt-like thing because it had ripped. And as she's doing that, she pricks herself. And big gush of blood. Mm-hmm. And then it drops onto this little figure. And you see the red, and it soaks it, and then all of a sudden, he's alive, and he's like, and then and grabs the first iron he sees, and then just starts.
That is little Pulgasari when he is first brought to life. So, like you mentioned, because of the blood, he basically begged the gods of the god of Pulgasari to save his people after he passed, and like his energy force, I think, went into the little figurine he created, but then her blood brought it to life.
Yes.
So it makes me wonder if the soul of the grandfather, the blacksmith, is inside Pulgasari, or when he passed, a part of his energy life force went into it. And then the final thing to bring it alive was the blood. But I thought it was an interesting way to bring out a kaiju. Yeah. So obviously, as soon as this little figurine comes to life, it starts chewing like the pins that are in the because obviously the needle pins actually is using to sew and to make clothing and stuff with, and then it starts eating scissors, and then later on when they're sleeping, it climbs onto the doorway, chews the lock of the door, the door opens and it runs out into like the garden area. They wake up and they think, where the hell is Pulgasari? When they go out, he's grown tremendously from when they first introduced to him.
Right.
And obviously, this is when they try to hide him because they know that the monarchy soldiers could be around. And suddenly, this is when I think it's the grandmother arrives crying, which I'm assuming was either the blacksmith, her father's sister. So if it's I think it's an auntie. So they go into Reed just cry because she finds out that her fiance is about to be executed in front of the monarchy, the monarchy's general. So as he's, they frantically leave to get into the center of the village. When they get to the village, there's loads of people watching this execution, just begging for them not to kill him. And of course, you've got the executor who's about to kill a fiance when all of a sudden, boom.
He comes, the little thing just comes up like a little puppy dog and bites the sword. I was like, yeah.
And then he's like, ah! Ah!
And that's when like all hell kind of breaks loose.
Yeah.
So since you're doing a fantastic job, Jake, would you like to continue the plot?
Sure.
You're very good at it. I have to give it to you. Yes.
Okay, sure. So after we see that scene where they're fixing to execute him, and young Pulgasari comes and grabs and starts biting on the sword, he's like, "Oh, what the? There's a monster!" And everybody's like, "What? Go after it! Go after it!" So they go into I guess you could say, a tool shed where the creature is just munching on the steel. And they're like, "Oh, what is that thing? You go chop off his head." Tries to go chop off the head. Sword breaks. He's like, "You go spear it. Go spear it." You'll go spear it. Well, he ends up doing it. And as soon as he does that, breaks off. He's like, "Huh." And then he's like, "Arr." And then ends up going through the brick wall and escaping. And then the little brother and sister are like trying to find him after all this drama has happened. And it's like they're yelling, "Pulgasari! Pulgasari! Pulgasari!"
I mean, they're in the mountains, so it makes sense. They got to yell like that.
Yeah. And the kid comes across some gardening tools. And he's like, "Oh, we're getting close. We're getting close, I swear." I don't know why I just talked Irish, but oh no.
I gotta say, that's not Korean.
But anyway, she's looking over there, and then she's like, sister, look, there it is." And you see him looking down in the water, and you see the tiny fish, and he's like, "Roo," like a little dog. And a fun fact too, the actor that played Minya in Son of Godzilla, he actually did. He was an actual wrestler, believe it or not, back in that day, a professional wrestler, and he was the medium size Pulgasari. So they end up finding him, and he ends up taking the tools away from the kid, and the kid's trying to say, "You can't take that, Pulgasari. We need those." So after that, apparently they're Scottish too.
Hey, throw us some French and some Italian. I think you'll be all right.
But anyway, Pulgasari ends up walking through the bushes with the tools, and then you don't see him for a good while, and then the fiance and them start gathering people after the auntie and her little boy, they got captured because of them feel like they were helping, and you see the guy just hitting her in the legs with that stick, and each one of them is breaking over, and the little kid's like, "No, mommy, I'm hanging on to your leg, yayato, yayato, yayato," or something along that lines. And they end up both being thrown into the prison. And when the fiance enters, I guess both of them ended up dying because they didn't become unconscious or whatnot. He's like, I am going to get my revenge. And then
And this is when he forms a rebellion with the villagers, because the villagers are just sick of how they've been treated by the monarchy. So them alongside a now gigantic Pulgasari,
Yep,
who is like 150 foot tall by this point. He, along with the villagers, rebel against the monarchy. And the monarchy kind of figure out that the daughter of the blacksmith has some sort of connection or relationship in some way with Pulgasari. It very much reminds me of, since we talked about it yesterday, Anne Darrow in King Kong, of Kong, how you had Kong who had this connection with her or some fascination with her, and he protected her and looked after her in Peter Jackson's 2005, 2005 King Kong. So it felt as if, because of the connect, and I think it's also the splash of blood, a part of her, I guess, essence is in him. So what they decide to do is they decide to build a giant cage and force her to lead Pulgasari to this cage, which goes in the cage, and then they bury him deep under the ground.
Not until they set it on fire, though. Remember that?
Yes. So he gets set on fire, and he's then suddenly buried underground, assuming to be killed. But not quite.
Quite, yes.
Because when the monarchy think that they've got the upper hand and they've won, she escapes and goes to the burial ground of Pulgasari, and remembering how she had injured her finger and the splash of blood brought the initial figure back, she begs for Pulgasari to return once more to save the people, and she gets a knife, slits a hand, and dribbles a blood onto the soil, and suddenly Pulgasari returns.
Yes. And should we mention who is being played by the suit actor here? Legendary Kinsey Sato. I can't even say his name. Sorry, I want to butcher his name, but he's a legend. So he's famous for playing Godzilla and worked with Mr. Leighton Nakajima, who's unfortunate. This gentleman is late too. He passed away recently. So yeah. But he did a great job to portraying this creature, though. He did a good job.
Well, any role in whatever creature he was asked to bring to life, he did a fantastic job at doing. But obviously, this leads to Pulgasari then running through the monarchy and eventually helping the villagers to overthrow the monarchy.
Right.
And just when you think it's a happy ending, and this for me has a similar ending to King Kong, in the fact that King Kong was just an animal that was taken out of his environment and put into the city, and people that didn't understand him brought him to his downfall.
Yes.
So in this, what happens next is the blacksmith begged Pulgasari to come alive to save his people. She then brought him back to save the people, but he now himself has become, without his knowledge or even understanding, has become a threat himself, because he feeds on metal, he feeds on materials to keep him alive. So the villagers, when they're building tools or equipment to rebuild the city or to nourish the farmland, he's taking the equipment or materials that they need and he's eating them, which basically he's doing it for himself to survive and to nature himself, but at the same time, it's going to cause a bigger problem in the down the road, because it means the villagers won't be able to plant crops or make houses or anything.
Right.
And she realizes this. The blacksmith's daughter realizes that he, without him knowing, has become a threat. So what ends up happening is they build a giant metal bell. And she decides to sacrifice herself by putting herself inside this bell. And Pulgasari then picks up the bell and eats it, not knowing she's inside it.
Right.
And then slowly, without him knowledge, I gets the feeling that something's not right. And I guess, like I say, her life force with the blood is a part of him. And now that she's died, that, I guess, energy or life force has now been taken away. So he suddenly turns into stone.
Yes. And it starts to crumble all around everything, and he just dies at that point. This is a moment where you just like, you love the fact that the villagers overcome this monarch, this tarantula type of entity, but the thing that they created became just as big a threat to them as well. And knowing that she had to make the sacrifice, because she knew, it's like, would it be better to sacrifice one than to take all these people? So
it's like on his deathbed, the blacksmith, our father, begged for the spirit of Pulgasari to save his people.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he didn't not know in the long run that might create a bigger problem, he was that desperate to save his people. She was desperate to save her people, not realizing the end result could create a bigger problem. So it turns out the lesson is sometimes people with good intentions can do things that in the long run can do the biggest harm.
Right.
And that's very much what this created. And for a kaiju movie, it was an interesting way to end this film, with a person sacrificing themselves to kill the kaiju, and the person that sacrificed is somebody you actually generally cared for. You actually felt for her, and you felt for what she was doing to save her people.
To me, I feel that's a thing about when you do, because the norm of kaiju films, especially at this time, even before and after, it was just like you defeat the kaiju, or it might be your friend and it saves the day. But here it's like that the same kaiju that saves the day is now become an eternal threat to the people who created. So that to me is a good twist, and I feel like that's what you call good storytelling. I feel.
Yes, and that's why I'll be truly honest. Now that I've seen Yongari properly, and now I've seen this, I do like Yongari, but it just feels like a rehash of trying to do a Godzilla film, where this, for me, is unique and different and has a better story. I like the setting. For me, this could be like, like a crossover with, like, say, the Magic Serpent or Damaging. It just all feels as if those three particular films could be in the same world.
Universe, right? I like, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, in the same, and it's like three separate kingdoms with three different problems with three different magical beings.
Yes.
But I thoroughly enjoyed this story more than I thought I would, and I actually generally got to care about obviously the blacksmith's daughter, and she and obviously the blacksmith himself, and the plight that the people, the villagers, were going under this ruthless monarchy who are holding the people hostage with an iron fist.
Yes.
It generally, for me, was a really good story.
But isn't that the great thing about a good story is that when you have a good, when you have, well, I say this, when you have a good character arc, you have good people that you care for, the story will feel itself in, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem with some films nowadays. It's like you don't focus on the characters and see if they're important to what the story's going to bring out. And I feel like, yes, because you care for them and you hate like you say, you hate for this particular character, the blacksmith's daughter or whatever. You hate that she had to make this particular sacrifice just to
Mm-hmm.
save people, but you realize it was a necessity. It was something that had to be done. And when you're being drawn in, like we mentioned something, when you're drawn into something like that, you feel that pain, you feel that anger, you feel that it's like, oh, I hate this is happening, but I can understand why it has to be done, And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that you have some pictures that today you have very little that do this, but the rest is just like, oh, it's just a total cash grab. It's just total, affects. I mean, expectation. It's like, no, focus on what the stories bring to what you're looking at, and you'll see that it's doing just what it's supposed to be doing. And I'm just sad that, yeah, the way it ends, it's like it's saddened how it ends, but you realize like, well, at least you were invested with what was going on, why it had to be done, you know. And there's, yeah, and like I said, I love that guy right there. See,
Yeah, like some of the battle scenes are really good. Like I thought that effect was great. That the fact it catches the cannonball and spits it back out.
and that's kind of
Stuff
funny. I mean, I love the fact that this is, you have these battle scenes on the ground with the people are battling. Like I say, this right here is shot on in camera, and you're able to capture those kind of events. It wasn't all CG, but I mean the miniature effects. Yes, see, this stuff right here, which was done basically by a Japanese company, which was the same people who did the Godzilla films, did the miniature sets and the suits and everything. I love the fact that they're able to capture these things in camera, but at the same time blending them these two kind of events together. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the production cost of the film is really well done. Like I thought, it felt like it was in the time. The fact it's done on location in Korea, and they use like small sets. Like they probably did film in certain smaller locations. But going back to the story, yes, like you've mentioned, the film was written by Kim Se-yeon and Rai Chun-gu. So they did an amazing job when it came to this story.
Yeah.
Really liked this story. It would have been interesting to see where they would have went with the sequel, but I do think it stands good as a standalone film. But of
Yeah.
course, I think anyone can write a great story, but to capture a great story, you need a great director.
Mm-hmm.
And Shin San-ok is the director who, let's get cracking and talk about, they've talked a bit about the movie, we've mentioned a little bit at the beginning, the situation around this director. But I'm going to just go into it in a bit more detail. And this is the sad thing. The film was quite a decent, strong, good movie,
Yes, it is.
I felt. And despite what he went through, he actually did a great job. So here we go. Here's a little bit of more detail for those that do not know. In 1978, Shin and Choi were kidnapped. Choi is his wife, or ex-wife. So in 1978, Shin and Choi were kidnapped by order of Kim Jong II, who wanted them to improve the North Korean film industry. The couple remained in captivity for 8 years, and Shin directed 7 films for Kim, including An Embassy of No Return, Runaway, Love, Love, My Love, Salt, and Pulgasari, before they escaped in 1986 and sought asylum in the United States.
Hmm.
Shin gained American citizenship in 1989 and continued to produce films in the United States, now under his adopted name Simon S. Sheen. He and Choi eventually returned to South Korea for his final years.
Mm.
So the fact that this man was kept captive and produced an amazing kaiju film with a great story, because despite the circumstances of his captivity, he had a passion for filmmaking. And guarantee you, because of the pressures of this Kim Jong II, he had no choice but to try and put it his all in to make successful films. And I do know how when he escaped, it's because he wanted to do a film on location in France, and he was in Paris. And it was when he was in Paris he managed to escape and get on a plane and go to the States. If they were still in South Korea or North Korea, sorry. So he basically was kidnapped from South Korea and held captive in North Korea. So obviously when he went to location in Paris, that's when he was able to escape to get to the States.
Mm.
But it's just his whole backstory is crazy. And if they ever did do a movie, I could imagine it being similar to the Ip Man films. And I
Mm.
think Donnie Yen would be a perfect choice to play him in a film.
That would be a good idea. I mean, because like I say, Donnie's got a good acting chops. You know, well, he's not just known for martial arts and everything. He does have a good acting ability. You know, and he's up at that point where he could portray this man. You know, I feel that would be a great thing. It's just sad that he was forced to do that. I mean, as I said before, you're held in captivity for political reasons or anything like that. And I to me it didn't seem like it was that political, but it was to a degree because they wanted to make sure that our film industry is looking very boisterous. It has something that people can come and watch and indulge in. But that's a lot. When I read about this, I was saying that's a lot for someone to go through, to lock them up, put them in captivity, and says the cost of your freedom is to make these films for us, so that people can watch them and enjoy them, and hopefully enjoy them, and that would be the case. But yeah, when I first heard about this, about this kind of controversy, I was like, I know that some films, special effects films can be controversial, and I've mentioned something in the past on some other streams, that it's like, okay, this seems kind of silly. This seems kind of like, why would it go to that?
That's a good choice. Yeah, he's also in.
Yes, that would be. Yes, that would
Yeah,
be.
he was also in Squid Game.
Squid
I've
Games, I was
just
about to say.
he
Yes.
plays a character and he's really good in Squid Game. And there's another series which is on Netflix, which is a sci-fi series
Yes.
that I watched, where the water of Earth is depleted on the moon, and they're trying to like find a way to save the planet. Something Sea, I think it's called. I'll have to.
I gonna say, I know, and I know what you're talking about, but you see again though, that's the rigors of knowing that some people, I mean, like I say, me and Jake were talking about Hanuman, and the controversy behind that. This is an example where life and death is prevalent to something getting made for something like this, And it's sad that this film had to get made by force. It wasn't done. I mean, and the director did a good job in bringing it to the screen and everything, but it was still by force. I'm thinking like maybe if he wasn't in captivity or done this by force, I don't know. I mean, who knows what he could really bring to the table? But I think he did a good job in what he did for it.
Yeah, the actor who was in who played the dad in Train to Busan is Gong Yoo.
Yes. He's a very he's a very good actor. He's a very good actor. I mean, because I'm assuming that you've seen the Train to Busan, right? Greg?
Actually, no.
You haven't? Okay. Well,
I know the ending, though. I know what happens at the end, but I've never actually watched the film itself.
Well,
I actually used to own it.
Oh, really? Okay.
So Gon Yo is the actor in the show I was trying to talk about. It's called The Silent Sea. And it's quite an that's on Netflix. But he would be an interesting choice. But he has a bit more detailing into the kidnapping. So it says that in 1978, Shin's former wife Choi Yoon-hee, an actress who starred in many of his films, was kidnapped in Hong Kong and taken to North Korea. Shin himself came under suspicion of causing her disappearance, and when he travelled to Hong Kong to investigate, he was kidnapped as well. So he was kidnapped as well. The kidnappings were on orders of future leader Kim Jong II, who wanted to establish a film industry for his country to sway international opinion regarding the views of the Workers' Party of Korea. The Northern Korean authorities have denied the kidnapping accusations, claiming that Shin came to the country willingly. Shin and Chow made secret audio tapes of conversations with Kim Jong II, which supported their story. Shin was put in a comfortable accommodation, but after 2 escape attempts, was placed in a prison for over 2 years. Once his re-education in North Korea ideology was thought to be complete, he was taken to Pyongyang in 1983 to meet him and John II.
Okay.
Wow. So basically, they tried to brainwash him into the ideology of Korea.
Anytime you hear the words or the word re-education, that's pretty much what that is. That's literally lobotomizing a person into submission. That's what I'm talking about. That's insane. That's if I really, someone ought to do this film, do a film like this, talking about the backstory of this film. I really do.
It's like like if you're part of a cult, you have to follow the basic brainwash you and mentally torture you, so you then begin to believe in the scriptures or to believe in the ideology of that cult. And that's basically what they did to this man. They tried to brainwash him and force him into believing the beliefs of whatever the North Korean ideology was at that time.
I was about to say it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, but that's a different kind of brainwashing. It's where the person, the person gets kept in captive. But now this is totally different. And that's literally a lobotomizing a person. That's really, really taking their soul and just stomping it on the ground. And it's like, you're on our rule. You think like us. That's what you call a tyrant. That's what you call a dictator kind of move there. That's what I'm saying. Oh my God. See, I can't get into that. I get too emotional about that stuff because it just seems that's wrong, taking another human life and pretty much bringing them down to the utmost
do some research on North Korea and kidnapping. Apparently, they even have a program on kidnapping Japanese citizens for espionage purposes. Crazy. But basically, the only way they were able to escape is they were. I said earlier, I need to correct myself, that they went to Paris, France. It wasn't Paris, France. They were in Vienna.
Oh,
They were. So it says here in 1986, 8 years after his kidnapping, Shin and his wife escaped while in Vienna for a film festival. They managed to obtain political asylum from the US Embassy in Vienna, and Kim Jong II became convinced that the couple had been kidnapped by the Americans. Shin and his wife lived covertly for 2 years in Reston, Virginia, under American protection, and authorities debriefed the couple about Kim Jong II and their experience in North Korea.
Wow.
And did you know after his events there, he still continued his film career as a director?
but not in where he was at.
No, because according to Michael Lee, a former CIA agent, Shin and Choi adopted the names Simon Sheen and Teresa Sheen and became American citizens in 1989. 3 years after their escape, the couple moved to Los Angeles, where Shin worked in the 1990s as Simon Sheen, director of Three Ninjas and Knuckle Up.
Oh, wait a minute.
Really?
Yes, I say I've seen those films too. Oh,
And
wow.
he worked as an executive producer on Three Ninjas Kickback and Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain.
Wow.
Because I saw Three Ninjas in the theater, so I was like, I never thought of.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen pretty much all the Three Ninjas. I still like the first one the best, but
Yeah, me too. Damn.
Wow.
I'm like you. I'm like, wow. I'm like,
wow.
I ain't got the words. I mean, that's
Neither do I.
Now, tell me if I'm right or wrong. Is one of these ninja films, did it have Hulk Hogan in it, or is
That would have been
else?
the Mega Mountain one, yes.
So I would never have guessed that the director of Pulgasari, who was kidnapped, came to America, changed his name, and directed the Three Ninja movies.
And I only saw the first one. I never saw the other two. But I mean,
well, he directed the first one, but he was an executive producer on the other two.
Yeah.
The third one, the only reason why I remember the third one because there's this big heavyset guy that is a bad guy, and he scares this little kid, just yells at him or roars at him in front of his face, and makes him wee his pants.
Oh my god!
So that's the only reason why I remember. And then Hulk Hogan's character in that film was like he was part of the Mega Mountain. He was actually an attraction for the Mega Mountain Fair thing. Wow.
Yes. And then it says, at first, Shin was reluctant to go back to South Korea because he feared the government security police would not believe the kidnapping story. He eventually returned to South Korea permanently in 1994 and continued to work on new movies. The same year, he was invited to the Cannes Film Festival as a jury member. His last movie as a director was an unreleased 2002 film called Kaiju, i.e., The Story of Winter.
Okay.
Shin ended his career in 2004. That year, Shin underwent a liver transplant. He died of complications caused by hepatitis 2 years later. At the time of his death, he was planning a musical about Genghis Khan. South Korean President Roh Moo-hyun posthumously awarded Shin the Golden Crown Cultural Medal on April 12, 2006, the country's top honour for an artist. Wow. And it was well deserved after everything he went through.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Well deserved.
I think that's this is what I really do hope one day that his story, what he went through, can be turned into film. Put into a film because that I like what you just read, what you just told us. I knew like I say, the synopsis of it, but I didn't know like the full transition from where he was at and then him escaping and all these things. I would love to see that I would love to see that in celluloid. To be honest with you.
The fact that they kept him in nice accommodations by force, but when he tried to escape, they eventually went right and were putting you in a prison cell, and he was probably only released so he could work on the films and then go back to the cell. Your mind boggles like how a person can be treated like that. And if you think of the story of Pulpazari itself, it was like a telling of his own life. You have the
Yeah.
monarchy who are really treating these villagers like in the peasants and starving them and torturing them and just bullying them and keeping them under lock and key. He was actually physically going through that in his own life. So, it's one of them tales how art
I was about to say
in real life can
yes.
emulate one another.
Isn't that weird how that is though? That's like saying yes. I'm like, my goodness. I mean, I guess he was saying that to say, okay, you're having a good time watching this film, but on the upside, it's like I'm being held captive here. Someone get me out. Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, but I do, like Anthony Jordan mentioned earlier, like you guys have mentioned, somebody needs to take the lead and actually turn his life in story. It needs to be told in a much bigger way. And I think if they do, it'll be very impactful. But maybe the hesitation is because there's always been hostility between South and North Korea. So to do a film of that nature, is it going to stir up more trouble? Maybe
Well,
that's a reason why it's not being touched.
well, I feel that if they were to do it, it definitely wouldn't be. Let me see. Well,
Correct.
this is what I feel
Disgusting.
about that. If they were to do it, I mean, I think they need to do it regardless and say, do it in another country where it be not necessarily America, but some other foreign land and have someone who looks like the guy, looks like the director and have them play that, because it's like you really want to capture that, what he went
Well,
through.
he has a great idea. The director of -1, he is signed a contract with an American studio, and after Godzilla -0 comes out, he will be working on and releasing his first American or English film. So he would be a perfect choice to make that his film after his first English film. Also, I believe the director of Parasite could do it.
I was thinking about that too. I mean, the guy who directed Parasite, he would definitely be good to do that. I wouldn't. Yes.
And it's a long shot. I don't think it'll ever happen. But Steven Spielberg,
Well, look,
what he
if
was able to do with Schindler's List, Warhorse, Saving Private Ryan, I'm sure he could put his own spin and magic onto this.
the way I look at that, when you bring up Spielberg, he's had some hit and misses, but the thing about it is he's passionate about telling a story, and I feel like if he attaches his name to something, that might get it off the ground. Because let's be honest, a lot of some of the films that we see nowadays wouldn't see the light of day without Spielberg giving them a hands up and getting it off the ground. So you never know. I mean, we can say it'll happen, but I've seen other stuff that I say it'll never happen, and it actually came to life.
Yes, definitely. But Shin Sang-oh, we salute you, sir. You had one hell of a life. Probably not the life you totally wanted to have, but you've been honoured by South Korea, and we're talking about you to this day.
Yes, honoring
We are
you.
talking about one of your films. It might not have been the kind of film you personally wanted to produce, but it's a part of your legacy, and it's brought us to you, sir. So rest in peace, and we honour you here today. And with that said, my friends, final thoughts on Pulgasari and ratings out of 10. We'll start with Jedi Grand Velle.
Well, I was going to say let Jake go first, but I'll take the reins on this one. No, the overall film, is, it's a lot. It's one of those lost treasures. It's sad that it had humble beginnings, but unfortunately, the beginnings were because of by force, which I hate. I'm kind of like Steve Rogers in the first Captain America. I don't like the fight, but I don't like bullies. I don't like that. I don't like people trying to force someone else's hand to do something. I'm just sorry that that's the reason why this film got made the way it did. But at the same time, you can see that it's a love letter to all the kaiju films that came out before and after. And I'm just glad we got to see it with our own eyes and realize that there's more to this film than just, a big monster tarantula around the way. It's really saying that human beings, if you are under force by something, you can have the strength or keep the will to fight back if you can, and eventually you will be free from that kind of tyranny. So, no, on all seriousness, this film it's a real joy. It's just sad that it was made the way it is, but in all, I feel it's a good film all around. And I think it deserves people to see it, because if you're a kaiju lover, you love monsters, you need to watch this film. I mean, it's there. It captures the culture, it captures all these things. And as far as rating goes, watched it the first time. This is like my third time watching it. If I was to give it a rating, I would say literally I would give it a 9, tell you the truth, because of the story itself, how it's not the story that led to this story, but the story that it's telling about how people rise up and know that even though when you get something that's going to fight for you, you have to still do the most, sad thing in order to make your people happy. You got to make sure that their survival is proven. So yeah, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Very good. Mr. Jake Hall.
After watching it for a second time and watching it the first time, and hearing all the stuff that transpired behind the scenes, I have a much more deeper appreciation for this film.
Yeah.
The story was good. How it was portrayed was very well done. Cinematography was good. The creature itself looked amazing. For me, on rating, 9.5 out of 10. I mean, I really enjoyed this film, and it was a great storytelling. Wish it was under better circumstances, but regardless, it was a good film, and 9.5 out of 10.
Cool.
As for me, I've only seen this film very much like Jake Hall a couple of times. First time I must have been many years ago, probably when I first got the internet and Internet Archive first started, and it was a horrendous version of this film.
Yeah.
And then it's available on YouTube now. You can watch it. It's still not the best copy, but it's much better than the original copy. I do enjoy this film. I think for me, if I had to pick between Yongari and Pulgasari, I think I prefer Pulgasari's story. The direction of this movie is brilliant. The cinematography is brilliant. I love the locations. I love kind of the world it's set in. Like I see, you mentioned it had similarities to Seven Samurai and Star Wars. I think it's got those elements, but mixed in with the connection with the blacksmith's daughter and Pulgasari himself to King Kong. And, so the film itself is fantastic. The backstory behind the production of this film is heartbreaking, but it's also a testament of how this man, despite the circumstances and being held captive, he actually put his all into making a really strong, decent kaiju film that is now part of the kaiju history and legacy. In Pulgasari, in its own way, has also made a comeback thanks to Titanic Creations with the release of the Pulgasari figures. Hopefully, Pulgasari will return again if Titanic Creations, or like they did with Gorgo, they'll probably hopefully release a Pulgasari comic book and add him into the Soul Wars universe. But as for the film itself and for respect for the director, I really like this. Is why I'm going to give this a strong 9 out of 10. And so, one other thing, I found an image before. This is the director.
Yes.
That is Shin Sang-ok. He was born in 1926 and he died in 2006 at the age of 80-year-old back in his home country in Seoul, South Korea. He led a very interesting life. Rest in peace. Nothing but respect for you, sir. But yes, a great film. But thank you to you guys for doing this with me. This has been Kaiju Connections. This has been our conversation on Pulgasari. But before we wrap up, Mr. Jedi Grand Velle, what is coming to Jedi Grand Velle Productions?
Okay, well, I got a slew of stuff coming out this month, which is crazy because usually I don't do that much in a month. But this month, and it's the end of the year, I'm going to be doing a bunch of things like coming this Saturday. I'll be joined up with the Film Fanatic and Sci-Fi Century, and we're going to be discussing 2003's Cradle to the Grave that stars Jet Li,
Nice
DMX.
Good film.
Yes, yeah, it is. I mean, it's a rather underrated film, action film at least anyway. And that Sunday, I'll be teaming up with a friend of mine, Mr. Mark Justice, and we're actually going to be discussing our top favorite Godzilla scores to the past films that we've seen. I mean, it could be anything from the old Showa ones to the recent ones, and if someone was to pick the 98 Godzilla, that's your choice. I know Anthony was interested in joining into this, so if he was to pick that one, it's like, hey, that's fine. I have passed no judgment. Just realize I can't stand that film. Other than that, let me see. That's that following week. I mean, that's okay. That's next week. Okay, next week, I will be doing a top 10 Godzilla epic, iconic moments in terms of where we see any Godzilla film, whether it be American or Japanese, we see like the greatest one where he does the Tokyo Shay in Invasion of Astro Mother. That's a moment right there where it's like you think of it, it's like that's the most iconic moment out of some of the films he's done. So stuff like that will be in that. And that Saturday, I will be joining up. I'm thinking it's this not the I think it's the 19th, is it? Or to make sure it's the 20th. Yes, it's the 20th.
It's the 20th, yeah.
Yes. And I will be joined up with my friend, Mr. Kevin Lambert, and I think even Jake Hall will be to it, where we were discussing 60 years of the most famous tortoise kaiju ever, Mr. Gamera. And I'm definitely want to do that. But other than that, I got other things in the back burner, but I'll discuss it when we get there, when we do some other stuff. So yeah. So that's
yes. Well, I do know obviously my good friend Mr. J. Cole doesn't actually have his own YouTube channel, but He's always a welcome face here on the entertainment headquarters, Kaiju Connections, or any of my segments. So I'm just going to run down what is coming throughout the rest of December in the festive season here on the entertainment headquarters. And J. Cole, just give me a shout if you want to be a part of any of these discussions. You're more than welcome. So here we go. We are now heading to the 13th of December, and we're going to be doing the Middle Earth special, where I'll be talking about the three Lord of the Ring movies, and of course, The Hobbit. And of course, it's 25 years. And in February, the extended editions of them particular films, The Lord of the Rings, are being re-released in cinema. So that's going to be interesting. So that is on the 13th of December, the Middle Earth special. The 17th of December, I'm going to be doing the Retro Classic Movie Show, and I'm doing the Back to the Future trilogy. So that is also coming to the channel. Then on the 19th of December, me, Anthony Jordan, Mr. Tony the Dead, and Mr. DJ Anubis are doing the next Into the Darkness special. And it's going to be The Shining and Doctor Sleep.
Yes. And
So-
Anthony has very publicly said that the theatrical is not his favorite, but hey, you'll learn to love it.
Yes. And then, as my good friend Mr. Jedi Granville has mentioned, I cannot end the year of 2025 without celebrating the Guardian of the Universe, friend to children,
Yes.
Gamera, on his 60th anniversary year. And can I just say that the people that own the Gamera franchise, you're a fucking pair of assholes, because you can't even announce a new film or do anything. You've done jack shit for that damn tortoise. So any or turtle. So guess what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna celebrate it my way.
Go.
Then
Give it to where it hurts the most.
finally, me, DJ Anubis, and DJ Neko on. Oh, and Anthony Jordan. I forgot Anthony Jordan is also joining us for this. On the 23rd of December, we're going to be recording my second Christmas special, and it's going to be Edward Scissorhands and Scrooged.
Yes.
Yes, so that will be wrapping up December and the festive season right here on the entertainment headquarters. But one more time, one more shout out. Thank you, sir, for all you've done. Rest in peace. Your legacy will never die. But this has been Kaiju Connections. This has been the entertainment headquarters. Thank you, Mr. Jedi Granville and Mr. J. Cole. And all I can say is keep loving your movies, keep loving all things entertainment. And as my good friend Mr. Jedi Granville always says, keep the kaiju love alive.
There you go.
Night, everybody.
Night.